There's a bunch of stuff that like you can get that is so bizarre that you don't have to have a driver's license to get those.
One of any of these things here. Guess how many we have? Zero. Welcome back to Platt 365. I'm Bob.
And I'm Lisa, and today we're going to talk about residency.
Our backstory is we decided in February, so what was that, 10 months ago? To go on an RV trip. We didn't really know what we were getting into. We had a lot of fun. We headed down to Florida from New York, which is always a good idea in winter time. And we went down there and spent, what, a month down in Florida?
6 weeks in Florida.
And at the end of the 6 weeks, we were going to decide, do we like this? Do we hate it? Are we going to sell everything we just bought, or are we going to keep going? And we decided to keep going. So we had a blast. We went all down the southern states, into California, up the west coast. We basically saw the entire perimeter of the country. And we made it all the way back to New York and decided to sell our house and go full time. It's currently under contract and we're closing.
A always B, B, C closing. Always be closing.
In about a week?
Yep, should be about the 18th.
Which is pretty exciting. So. Then the decision is, where do you set up your residency? Where we decided, because we were from New York State, which is one of the highest state income tax, and we were paying 5 to 8% depending on, there's a lot of factors, depending on your tax bracket and actually your county and city where you live as well. So we were 5 to 8%, and we didn't like that. So we said, well, there's 9 states that have 0 state income tax. So let's start with those 9. So we went down that path, and those 9 are Alaska, Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. We were kind of being pulled in a specific direction, and we'll get there in a minute, but those 9 states, very interesting. If you go online and look up cost of living and you say, where are the least expensive states to live in? Well, they use all sorts of different factors. They use your income, average house price, cost of health care, cost of utilities, and a lot of these factors don't really apply to us in that our income, we have a business that we can do from anywhere.
It's not so much that they don't apply to us, just that they were not as much of a consideration.
Right.
We're a younger family, we're a fairly healthy family, so medical insurance isn't as big a concern as for somebody who requires routine or maintenance care for something. That's a huge difference for people's situations.
We've also gone down a path. Our medical insurance is Medishare. So if you're not familiar with it, you're interested in any information, we'd be happy to follow up and just put a note below, and I can point you in the right direction. But so that's just one small example. The cost of living also has to do with housing prices. Well, we are going to be in an RV eventually. We do want to build a sticks and bricks again, but while you're in an RV, that's not a consideration at all. We have these 9 that are 0% state income tax. Well, you take those 9, one of those is Alaska. And the problem with Alaska, as great as it is, they have all sorts of benefits of living there. You have to go to Alaska once a year for like vehicle registration and renewing stuff. And so you have to actually step foot on Alaska. So you can take that one right off. For us. Maybe if you're there every year, then it's no big deal. The other 2 you can get rid of are Tennessee and New Hampshire, because they have taxes on interest income. So, if you're earning any money off of like your retirement,
retirement or investment account earnings, they will tax that, and they'll tax it kind of heavily. So
those 2 are gone. So now what we're at 9, now we're at 6. Then with those 6, there's 2 other another factor that 2 states, it's called personal property tax. And Washington State and Florida State have personal property tax. And what that is you buy an RV, which is a significant purchase, you're going to be taxed on it, and sometimes very heavily.
So if you haven't yet purchased your vehicle or your RV, for what you're thinking about doing and you're looking at jumping into this lifestyle, those taxes are something that you do need to take into consideration.
Washington, Florida, that crosses those two off. So what were we at? 6? Now
Yes,
we're
now we're down to 4.
4. And those 4 are Nevada, South Dakota, Texas, and Wyoming. And when you look at those 4, the 2 big ones that you see over and over are South Dakota and Texas.
Because of the limited amount of times that you need to have your vehicle inspected in state, it's very simple to do almost everything remotely. So again, it tends to be...
You need to go to South Dakota every 5 years. So Texas, I believe you still have to be there every year for like vehicle inspection and stuff like that, registration. But South Dakota is once every 5 years. So if you truly are going to live the full-time RV lifestyle where you're literally on the move all the time, South Dakota is great.
There's also the hassle factor.
Texas, for instance, you can, I think it's like something like 10 hours, you can be a resident of Texas. It's like some crazy turnaround time. They just do everything online. You get your driver's license, you get voting, registration, everything's done. And that's awesome. God bless Texas. So let's get to where we decided, and some of you already know this, we decided to go Washington State. Now, a lot of full-time RVers would stay away from Washington State because of the sales tax, the personal property tax. We had already purchased our RV and paid taxes. Now, you do have to pay a difference of the taxes. We didn't realize that. So there was like a percent.
It was a 1% difference.
From New York State to Washington State.
I believe we paid 7% in New York and we had to pay 8%.
Right.
So we had to pay the difference of the 1% of the purchase price.
Funny story though, we go down there and so getting into the hassle factor, what you were talking about, this was the biggest hassle. I mean, we did it, but it took some doing because we came around the whole United States. So we came to Washington. By the time we got to Oregon, we were like, I think we're going to do this. And by the time we got to Washington, we're like, we're totally doing this. We're going to full-time RV, eventually get to Washington. So we go to the DMV.
We very naively thought that when we were here, because we were here for about 6 weeks in the summertime, we said, well, it looks like everything when you start setting up residency, everything starts with your driver's license in Washington. And each state kind of has its own set of procedures. But in Washington State, you can do nothing, until you have your Washington State driver's license.
So Lisa, God bless her, she does all the research. She goes online, because we don't want to show up and get turned away. So we have the documentation. If they need this, what do they need? Like a Verizon bill or something?
They need a utility bill showing your Washington State billing address.
Right, which
was
also
the one that they could do. There's a whole list of things that they could do, but because of our particular situation, we own our own business. So we pay ourselves. So we don't have a pay stub.
There's no pay stubs.
Our W-2s are different, and because we own our own business, they don't accept that as establishing where our paycheck is coming from.
Well,
it just got complicated.
Also, we had already set up a traveling mailbox. There's a company called Traveling Mailbox. There's 3 or 4 of these companies. They're all good and have their pluses and minuses. We went with Traveling Mailbox. Set the address up in Washington. So we were like, good, we got our address. So we go in there and we were like, all right, we need our driver's license. And they're like, all right, well, you need, one of these 20 pieces of info, or 2 of these 20 pieces of information. And we thought we had it. And they're like, no, that's a P.O. box. That's been flagged. God bless Traveling Mailbox. We've enjoyed using them, but so many people have tried doing this. I think they got flagged.
The Washington State has flagged traveling mailboxes in the state of Washington as P.O. boxes, even though it's not a P.O. box in the address.
Right, so it's not like a physical address. So
it
we're
was just funny.
So we were like, so we got turned away.
Nothing for you!
And we had to wait, I think it was a couple weeks, but we were heading back to New York. We're like, we need to get back to New York, and we're going to put our house up for sale. So they said, we'll do it when we come back. So we go all the way back to New York. We put our house up for sale, which took a couple months because we got rid of all our stuff. And then we came all the way back, and we go back for our second visit.
We came to this thing that you would call a DMV, but in Washington State they call it driver's licensing. And we did this before we left to go back to New York to sell our house, thinking, hey, let's get the ball rolling.
On our first visit, very helpful lady said, all you need to do, change your cell phone bill to wherever you're getting mail in Washington. That'll take care of it. As long as you have a bill with that address on it, you're good. Went ahead and did that.
We got the traveling mailbox, a physical address. We got that all set up, ready to go. Problem is we didn't have the actual, why didn't we get it that first time? Because we didn't have a bill going to that.
Because we didn't have the bill. I had called and had talked to them. They said, yeah, it's a weird situation, but come on in, we'll get you started and you should be fine.
So we came in, we didn't have a piece of mail saying our, you know, address or whatever. And they said, nope, you need a piece of mail.
Nothing for you.
Okay, well, we were like leaving the next day to go back to New York. So we went, just said, whatever, we'll do it later. We get back to New York, we put our house up for sale, we come all the way back. Here we are with
a cell phone bill that has our traveling mailbox address on it, as well as a USPS official change of address form.
Cool.
That was addressed to us. So thought that was great. They said that would be good, except when you did it online for your USPS, you hit family. So it addressed it to
Platt.
Nothing for you.
Instead of Robert or Lisa.
Or both.
Or both, or whatever. Also, he said if you submit that and spend, what, $89?
$89 for your license.
They'll see that it's not an actual physical address and it's more like a P.O. box, which is kind of what traveling mailbox is. Then they'll bounce it back because it's not a physical address.
Yeah.
So he said you're going to waste $89 doing that.
Nothing for you.
And the lady said that when I was talking with the lady today, she said that actually that's one of the addresses in particular that has lately been flagged as unacceptable. So I think, from what I can tell, is traveling mailbox has been flying under the radar and saying it's a physical address, because that's one of their big things on their website. It's a physical address that you can use.
Yeah.
But they have now been flagged by the federal government as a business address and not acceptable for state government
addresses. They said,
addresses.
do you sleep there? And we're like, no.
No. So then we tried changing our cell phone bill to the location, the address of the RV park where we're currently staying. And they said, that's great, but we still have to have it on the bill, and we're 19 days away from the bill being issued to show that address on.
So we are going to receive a statement in 19 days that has the correct address that we can take here. In the meantime, slight possibility that we could go get a registration to vote, not have a driver's license, not have a resident, but actually register to vote here in Washington State. Get a piece of paper that says we're registered to vote, take that to this driver's licensing place, and that will work. Now, how we're able to get registration to vote here in Washington but not get a driver's license, I have no idea how that works. That's our next step. We have to decide if we really want to go down that rabbit hole, possibly get rejected, or do we wait 19 days? Why do you, now you ask, why is this so important? Why are you trying to like push this so fast? Why don't you just wait until you buy your land or do whatever you're going to do in this area? I'm glad you asked. The answer is taxes. We are trying to get away from New York State taxes, and Washington has 0 state income tax. Side note, we're at the driver's licensing center. Right next door is the guns and ammo store. Thought that was funny.
And 3 doors down is a brewing company.
So you can get beer, guns, and driver's license.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that you can do in order to prove your residency here is if you have a hunting license, any type of professional license,
tribal ID.
A tribal ID. There's a bunch of stuff that like you can get that is so bizarre that you don't have to have a driver's license to get those.
One of any of these things here. Guess how many we have? Zero.
So you went down first to see if it would work.
Yes.
She goes down, gets her voter registration with what? Nothing?
The address of the RV park that
Oh,
we're
we
living
used
in
the-
because
yeah.
we were staying here
Yeah.
for an extended period of time. And so I got my voter registration card and they printed out for
Right
you
there.
right there.
Yeah.
And then I literally drove 5 minutes down the road to the Department of Licensing, said I have my voter registration card, and they're like, oh yeah, go
No
ahead,
problem.
you can get your license.
No problem. Yeah.
Red. Beautiful.
It was like that. Oh. It was hilarious.
It was crazy.
So it worked. She was the guinea pig. I went, did the same thing, got the card, came in, got the driver's license, and then once you have the driver's license, you're good. We chose Washington. A little backstory. About 13 years ago, we were trying to decide whether we should move from Southern California to Washington State or New York State. It's kind of a big difference there, but we had a draw for, we had a lot of family in upstate New York and in Massachusetts and in that area. So we had a draw to go to upstate New York, which we did, and we spent the last 13 years there. But part of the back of our minds, we were like, Washington State was kind of like this really cool place, and we really loved that area. So as we did this RV trip and we came through Washington State, we were like, oh yeah, we love it here. So the fact that there's 0% state income tax was like a bonus. We're gonna end this video by saying everybody's a little different. Everybody, these factors, especially the cost of living factors, are just all over the map. Your specific situation is different. Most people are drawn to South Dakota or Texas for a lot of good reasons. We were personally drawn to Washington State. We do want to set up some sort of routes. We want to keep traveling. We love this. We love the full-time RV thing. Yeah. But we also like the idea of setting up some routes. And being from the design profession, we want to design a house eventually. And
we can't help ourselves.
So we've kind of been looking at some land, and we were thinking of that, going down that path. That's why we chose Washington State. We are here, and we've been here for what, 2 months now?
It's been 2 months.
And yeah, we've been doing some cool stuff, and we're going to share with you a whole series of things we've learned over the past 10 months, and we're still kind of newbies, but we've learned some things, and we're just happy to share those with you. Just wanted to give you a little bit of an update why we chose Washington State. So if you haven't already, subscribe.
Hit the bell.
And catch us on the next episode.